The specifics of what I didn't like in the administration, I didn't like the way they were treating people in the war in Afghanistan and in Iraq. I thought the Guantanamo business was really outrageous. I may have felt that way in part because I was a former prisoner of war. I spent 27 months in a German prison camp, and nobody treated me in that German prison camp in anything like the fashion that we were treating people at Guantanamo, and I was ashamed of that. These were Nazi Germans, and here we were treating people worse than that. And I was proud of the Department of Justice, where I worked with Bobby Kennedy, whom I loved, and what I think was a great department. And the idea of making the administration of justice political is just more than I could stand. And I think the third and important reason for wanting to write the book and for writing it was to try to tell young people that it did not have to be the way it is today. That there is nothing more satisfying, in my view, than working with others in the government to accomplish things that you want to accomplish for people, and to do it in a nonpartisan way because it's right to do, not because it's politically advantageous to do it. As far as the justice system is concerned, I think that the main thing that he needs to do is to appoint an attorney general who has stature and who will depoliticize the administration of justice. I think he needs to make that person his advisor and to follow that advice. I think he needs to close Guantanamo, and I think he needs to do what a good leader can do, and that is to try to lead by persuasion rather than by fiat. That's difficult, but I think it can be done, and the point is that the major accomplishments that we have made in our history have all been made not for purposes of one political party or the other, but made because there were people in government of a stature and belief who wanted to do what was right for all of the people. When I was in the administration, the justices were, the judges were essentially picked by the senator from your own party, if there was one. And all that we could do is what the Republicans had done before us in the Eisenhower administration, and that was to set standards of qualification for those people. But I think that what you didn't want was people who were partisan in their views or who would stretch the law for any kind of political purpose or really do anything political. Once you went on the bench, you were non-political. And that was the end of it. You may have worked in politics to get there, but once you're there for everybody, not for one group of people. I think it's perfectly natural for the president who is appointing Supreme Court justices to want to appoint somebody whom he thinks is extremely highly qualified and whom he thinks is basically sympathetic to the beliefs that he has. I don't think it's necessary to interview people, to ask people questions to do that. I think you can know who those people are. There are always a short list of those people who are qualified. And it's important for the president to remember that an appointment of that kind will go on for 20 or 30 years. And what you're looking for is somebody who has the intellect, the competence, the devotion to law, and the lack of ego to be able to make decisions that are in accordance with the Constitution in the fairest way he can and in a collegial way with his eight colleagues. I really wouldn't want to say. I think there's a number. I would probably appoint, if I were president, a very well-known Court of Appeals judge who had a reputation, nonpartisan, non-political reputation, to straighten out the department. And I would try to get somebody of a relatively younger age so that he could contemplate, or she, the possibility of going from the Attorney General's job to the Supreme Court if a vacancy should occur. That should be the kind of motivation that you would want, because it'll keep you nonpartisan. I think litigation has been and continues to be an important factor in changing things around. But what are you doing when you talk about litigation and changing things? All you're really talking about is litigation that tries to make the government comply with the law. Probably of equal importance to the right to vote is what we call the rule of law. And all that means is that people in government at every level are constrained to act within the limits of the Constitution and the legislation which exists. And that includes the President of the United States and the governor of the state, members of Congress, and all the people working in the executive branch. And that's an enormously important thing. And litigation helps to remind people of that, but they shouldn't have to be reminded of it. I mean, why do we have all these huge number of lawyers in the government? Presumably, in my mind, it's to advise their bosses what the law is and how to stay compliant with it. It's not to advise them how to get around it, how to do things. It's not to make ridiculous claims about the constitutional powers of the president, which is what this administration has done, and they are ridiculous. And they've tried to build up a strong executive, which is the one thing our founding fathers did not want. And they build it out of saying, well, he's commander-in-chief, or she's commander-in-chief. I mean, it's ridiculous. The importance of the commander-in-chief provision, apart from giving George Washington some credit for what he had done in the Revolution, the importance of it was to bring the military under civilian control. That was why he was made commander-in-chief. It wasn't to give him additional powers. It was to prevent the military from having additional powers. And I think the Congress has got to learn that it has a role in this society. And if you talk about foreign affairs, you can't have a successful foreign policy that isn't supported by the Congress of the United States and the people in the United States. And there's no point in this executive trying to do it all by himself or herself. It's ridiculous.